You know that feeling like when you open Netflix maybe and you just scroll for ages?
Oh, yeah. 20 minutes gone, watch nothing.
Exactly. Totally overwhelmed by choice.
Yeah,
And it feels a bit like modern life sometimes, doesn't it? Just bombarded. Finding a clear way forward seems, well, kind of
it
impossible.
really does.
So today, we're going to take a bit of a different path. We're diving deep into some, let's say, ancient wisdom, specifically from Shaolin Master Shaw Hungi. We listened to him on the Diary of a CEO recently.
Yeah, fascinating conversation. And our mission here, using the transcript from that YouTube chat as our guide, is basically to pull out some really practical stuff for you. Wisdom from his Shaolin perspective. We're
Right.
looking at, his insights on focus, how to get past obstacles, finding your purpose maybe, and just dealing with all the chaos of modern life.
Okay, so Master Shaw Hungi, he kicks off by talking about exactly that. The sheer number of choices, the diversity, it actually makes deciding things really hard.
Hmm.
And he even suggests this difficulty. It's a big source of our, well, suffering.
Yeah, it's quite a statement. But what's interesting is how quickly he points to the solution. It's about knowing yourself
So
better.
know yourself.
Yeah. He argues that if you're clearer on your own, like true nature, then making decisions that actually fit becomes, well, easier,
Hmm.
more intuitive. Inner clarity helps you navigate the outside stuff.
That makes sense. And he definitely touches on some familiar struggles, right? Like the choice overload we mentioned.
Definitely.
But also that weird thing of feeling lonely, even though we're all supposedly connected online, and obviously the rise in mental health issues we're seeing everywhere.
Now, his core idea behind these problems is surprisingly physical.
Physical, how so?
He points out how most of us live now, just sitting way too much. He thinks we're fundamentally misusing our bodies.
Huh, okay.
And this misuse, he says, leads to an imbalance of, well, he calls them energies. And that imbalance is what fuels anxiety, dissatisfaction, and feeling disconnected from, right now.
So it's like if the foundation is shaky.
Exactly. Then everything built on it feels kind of unstable.
So the cost of ignoring our bodies isn't just like bad backs or something.
No, no. It's
No.
this constant low-level anxiety, this feeling that something's missing, that restless searching.
Yeah, always looking for the next thing.
Right. And never quite finding it. And the big thing is we miss the richness of the present moment because we're so caught up in future plans or these like illusions of what might make us happy later.
Which brings up balance, I guess. He talks about that too, right? Having a vision is okay, but
But not if it means you're totally checked out from what's actually happening right now. You got to hold both the vision and the present reality.
okay, let's shift to some bigger questions then. Purpose, our time here. He puts it pretty bluntly, doesn't he? Like maybe 50 more years in this body?
Yeah, it's Sark. Definitely designed to make you stop and think.
For sure.
And from there, he uses this really great analogy. You're the director of your own movie.
I like that.
So the question becomes, okay, with the time you got left, how do you want to write your story? It puts the focus right back on you, on being intentional.
And finding purpose. He says it's personal, like helping others.
That's one way, yeah. Contributing can give a strong sense of meaning for a lot of people. But he also broadens the idea,
Broad is it how?
suggests that maybe the purpose is simply to fully be here, to experience everything, the good, the bad, all of it.
Just experience.
Yeah. Embrace the joy and the hardship. And a key point he makes is not to take our current roles, our identities, quite so seriously, because they're temporary anyway.
That really clicks with that feeling people get sometimes, the is this it moment. Even when they've ticked all the boxes society says matter.
Totally. Success on the outside doesn't always mean connection on the inside. You can be surrounded by people and still feel deeply alone.
So what's the answer then, according to him?
He points to this fundamental need we have to connect with something deeper, something beyond just our individual selves. He calls it an inner source.
An inner source. Beyond family or friends.
Yeah, beyond even our closest human connections. Something more fundamental.
And what is this source? Is it like God or the universe?
He uses different terms, universe, God, infinite energy. The core idea is this underlying connection, linking everything, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
He uses that beautiful yin and yang image, how they both come from one single circle. That's the idea. This source is the unity beneath all the differences.
And connecting with that helps with the loneliness.
That's the idea. Provides a connection that runs deeper than surface appearances. It's like realizing we're all cut from the same cosmic cloth.
So finding the source, it's a personal thing. He can't just tell you how.
Exactly. Pointers can be given, sure, but the actual discovery, that has to be your own journey.
Okay.
And he offers a kind of comforting thought here. Everyone is exactly where they need to be on their path. You're getting the lessons you need for your next step up.
So what's the key then? How do you move forward?
The crucial thing, he says, is to be really honest about what's making you unhappy right now. What's holding you back? You need to identify that first.
He compared it to Super Mario levels, right?
Yeah. You got to beat the level you're on before you can move to the next one. Deal with the current challenges.
Okay, let's talk about another struggle he mentioned. This tension between always doing things and just being.
Right, that constant striving. He observes that a lot of that relentless chase for external stuff, success, possessions, whatever, often comes from a feeling of not being enough, a sense of lack.
And even high ambition, he suggests, might be about building an identity for ourselves.
Yeah, rather than connecting to that deeper source we talked about, it's like trying to construct your self-worth from the outside, brick by brick.
And he pulls you up short by reminding you how temporary it all is.
Mm-hmm. Even the biggest achievements, maybe they last 100 years, max, in the grand scheme, it really highlights that internal battle, doesn't it? The ego wanting validation versus that deeper call to just be present.
He mentioned 3 ways people learn this lesson.
Yeah, through direct experience, hitting a wall yourself, or by trusting a guide, a mentor figure, or through quiet contemplation, just thinking it through. Different paths for different people.
It's interesting thinking about chasing goals most people won't actually reach. There are lessons even in that striving, he thinks.
Apparently so. Lessons about your own drive, your limits. But ultimately, the main point is, if you want a different future, you have to be willing to let go of old ways of thinking and behaving.
Because otherwise you just repeat the same patterns.
And end up feeling the same way, unhappy, stuck. Which leads nicely into how our past, especially early experiences, shapes those patterns.
Right. He talked about early trauma or insecurity really affecting relationships later on.
Deeply. And he makes this really important distinction. Knowing you have a pattern, like, say, always picking unavailable partners.
Okay.
That's not the same as knowing what triggers that pattern in the moment. What specific feeling or situation sets it off.
Ah, okay. Awareness of the pattern versus awareness of the trigger.
Exactly. And that's where practices like mindful breathing or yoga come in. They help you become more sensitive to your inner state, those subtle energy shifts that signal a trigger.
He used that analogy of a small flame.
Yeah, like you need that inner sensitivity to notice the small flame before it becomes a huge emotional explosion. You have to address the root.
And this inner work, it starts with just believing it can actually help.
That's the first step.
Yeah.
You got to believe change is possible. Then you need the willingness to look honestly at your dark spots, as he calls them, the stuff you'd rather ignore, become transparent about them.
He also mentioned this idea of an elevated version of you watching. That's kind of intriguing.
Yeah, like a higher self, observing your choices. It can be a powerful motivator. So the process is believe, become aware, and then take conscious action.
And actions have consequences. Thoughts, words, too.
Everything creates ripples. He encourages choosing things that lead to lightness, freedom, pleasure, versus density, pressure, restriction.
He framed it as these 2 big forces, limitlessness versus restriction.
Pretty much. And a really practical tip he gave was to just reflect. What were the main emotions you felt this past week? That can show you where you might need to focus your energy for change.
He also stressed that the feeling of an experience is more important than the words we use for it.
Totally. Words can limit it, like his story about the master watching the sunrise. Just experience it, don't rush to label it. Practice looking beyond the surface.
But it's easy to fall back into autopilot, isn't it? Even when you want to be lighter.
Oh, absolutely. Life gets busy. That's why you have to consciously prioritize your inner goals amidst everything else.
And letting go. He sees that as something life teaches us anyway, especially towards the end.
Yeah, the universe kind of forces us to release attachments eventually. He also made a neat distinction about possessions.
What was that?
Between being attached to things versus simply possessing them without that clinginess. It's about the mindset you acquire them with, abundance or lack, and how much real time and presence you give them.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit. He talked about specific obstacles, these 5 hindrances. What are those?
Right, so these are mental states that basically block your focus. They are sensory desire, ill will or aversion, dullness, restlessness, and self-doubt.
Okay, sensory desire. Being distracted by nice things.
Pretty much. Easily pulled off track by pleasurable sights, sounds, tastes, whatever. Then there's ill will, or aversion.
So the opposite, disliking things.
Exactly. Hating discomfort, pushing away challenges. That also distracts you mentally. His advice is basically, don't touch the water.
Don't touch the water.
Meaning, don't get caught up in either liking or disliking something too intensely. Stay centered. Getting swept away by preferences disrupts your focus.
That feels super relevant with online stuff, comments, and opinions.
Totally. And he specifically mentions that. Don't take external opinions, especially from strangers online, too deeply. It's fleeting.
He also warned against putting people on pedestals.
Yeah, and stressed learning discernment, telling the real from the fake. Because realistically, even people close to you might not fully get your inner world. So you need that self-reliance acting from your own pure intention.
And all this comes back to focus. He used breaking a brick as an example.
Incredible example. He stressed it's not just raw strength, it's intense focus, aligning mind and body, understanding the energy, the structure of the brick.
Wow.
And that focused energy, he says, is exactly what you need to achieve goals in life. The training itself, consistency, patience, endurance, builds character.
So the brick breaking is a metaphor for human potential.
Absolutely. What we're capable of when we're aligned. He even described the training starting with wood, then stone, then metal. He talked about the different frequencies of these materials.
Frequencies, like energy.
Kind of, yeah. Understanding the essence of each thing you're working with.
This connects to the Shaolin virtues he mentioned, like a guiding system.
Exactly. They guide martial arts, but also life. He split them into two types. Virtues you should expect, and virtues you need to learn. Or virtues of action and virtues of the mind.
So expected virtues, like self-control, discipline.
Yep. Managing emotions, commitment, also benevolence, kindness, compassion. They're about using any power you develop responsibly.
And virtues of action, how you behave.
Right. Things like loyalty, trust, respect, courage. And the virtues of the mind support those actions.
Such as?
Patience, persistence, perseverance. The inner qualities that fuel the outer actions.
Let's talk about his own beliefs. He called it a religion of oneness.
Yeah, this core belief that everything is fundamentally interconnected.
And the path is about removing the stuff that blocks that realization.
Exactly. Removing the friction.
Yeah.
He emphasizes that we don't actually lack anything fundamental. The goal is to take away the layers covering our completeness, identity, past stuff, attachments.
He also talked about peace versus happiness, aiming for peace.
He sees happiness as often depending on external things, making it unstable. Peace, he suggests, is a more solid inner state you can cultivate.
Is peace always attainable?
Increasingly so, with inner work, though he acknowledges obstacles like what he calls karmic relations, often family ties. They bring joy, but also big challenges to our peace.
Does he share any of his own practices for staying centered?
He does. Waking up without immediately jumping into yesterday's thoughts. Really immersing in the present moment first thing. Doing conscious body scans, making sure he gets time alone.
And exercise.
Oh yeah, push-ups, sit-ups, and these standing practices. Holding specific postures for a long time.
Like that squatting monkey thing. What's the point of that?
Building willpower, building internal energy or chi, and generally doing hard things.
Why do hard things?
Because life is hard sometimes. Training for challenges makes you more resilient. He describes Shaolin Kung Fu as walking through the valley of pain.
Sounds intense.
It is, but it's not about loving pain. It's about learning to manage discomfort, observing it without letting it control you, developing that extra layer of awareness.
So growth happens just outside the comfort zone.
Consistently stepping slightly outside it. And that requires embracing uncertainty, being willing to go into the unknown, as he put it.
Any practical tips for doing that?
Simple stuff. Break small patterns. If you're usually quiet in meetings, raise your hand. Do something slightly uncomfortable.
And fear. How does he deal with fear?
He doesn't claim to be fearless, but he talks about waking up from the dream, realizing we often take things way too seriously. Rationalize your worries, understand life's duality, success, failure, yin-yang, it's all part of it.
He also shared something quite personal about his father's passing.
Yeah, that seemed really impactful for him. A catalyst for looking deeper at his purpose, reflecting on priorities. He mentioned an unfulfilled need for his dad's approval.
That's relatable for many people.
Absolutely. And he emphasized the importance of eventually giving that recognition to yourself.
Yeah.
Cultivating within you what you maybe didn't get externally.
Imagining what his dad might say. Permission to follow his own path.
Right. It shows how deep those subconscious needs can run, and that grieving is often an ongoing process.
Okay, wrapping up. Self-mastery. What's his definition?
Basically, learning and applying skills and knowledge to run your own life. Recognizing the master within you,
Yeah.
not being dependent on external things for your well-being.
Who needs this most, do you think?
He suggests it's especially for anyone whose happiness feels tied to outside factors, other people, circumstances. Self-mastery is the antidote to outsourcing your peace.
And for someone listening who feels really lost, lacking purpose, what's the key message they might miss?
He pointed out something crucial. The common thread among people who achieve things isn't that life was easy for them. It's endurance, persistence. They keep going through the ups and the downs. Life isn't just one straight line up.
That's a good reminder.
And he gave a practical exercise for finding direction, too.
What was it?
Identify the single most disturbing thing or the main negative emotion from your last week or month. Really look at what triggers it. Then focus your energy on finding a solution for that.
Like tackling the biggest bottleneck first.
Exactly. He said he has it himself constantly, always looking for what needs optimizing next.
Even his regret wasn't some huge past mistake, but something recent that felt rushed.
Yeah, shows it's an ongoing process, even for him, navigating life's bumps.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful. Master Shaw Hungi's wisdom feels both ancient and surprisingly relevant.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing these points together.
For me, the big takeaway is that path to self-mastery. It sounds simple, self-awareness, discipline, changing perspective, but wow, it's definitely not easy.
Not easy at all, but worthwhile.
Definitely. And if you want to go deeper, we really do recommend checking out Master Shaw Hungi's book and his YouTube channel. There's a lot more there. You know, that search for answers, for meaning, it's something we all share, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's universal.
And his message offers some really solid guidance for navigating, well, everything life throws at us. It speaks directly to that desire you might have for real knowledge, those aha moments and practical steps you can actually take.
So maybe a final thought for you to ponder. What autopilot patterns are you running right now? Think about it. And what tiny shift, like even just a 1% improvement, could you make today to move towards a more conscious, more peaceful way of being?